please tell us your name and what you do?
Roy Perino. Right now, we're the owners of the liquor store, and then in the summertime, I work with Meisel Excavation, doing stuff around town, foundations, and
Do you run equipment for Pete? Or?
at times the loader or the backhoe, and so I run that. It's
Okay. And where and when were you born?
my family lived here in Silverton. I was actually born in Durango, but in 1954, and then we lived here the rest of growing up.
Okay. Can you tell us a little about your life growing up, what you did?
Well, it was a lot different back then. I mean, the mines were going and everything, so just going through high school and going to school up here, you'd go fishing and camping and hiking a lot with it. And in the summertime, you'd always get a summertime job, and pretty much just a normal.
Okay. What about your schooling, education, college, any of that? Can you tell us about that?
I just went to college for one semester. I went to Rangeley. But other than that, I just came back and worked in the mine.
Okay, and how old were you when you started working in the mine?
Underground, it was right after I graduated. Like I said, I had that one semester in college, but it's in 1973 when we started working underground.
And what was your job?
I started out as a grease monkey and then worked my way up through all the rank, pretty much did everything underground. Yeah, over time and stuff, but I started out as a grease monkey.
Okay. And I understand you operated the drills too.
Yeah, over time. I mean, you started a grease monkey and then you graduated to a trammer or slusherman or whatever, and then when an older miner needed a partner or something, if he thought you could do the job, he taught you and he took you under his wing, and you became a miner then.
What was your favorite part?
I don't know, I enjoyed running the mucking machine as much as anything, but all of it was fun. It was fun to mine as a good group of guys, and so I don't know if I really had a favorite part. If I had to choose one, it would be running the mucking machine and muck and draw pocket.
So can you tell us a little bit about operating one of those machines?
It's pretty much just hand coordination. It's pretty easy to operate, really. A little harder underground than in the contests out here or something, because you got bigger rocks and stuff like that. But it's just two handles that forward and backwards. It's run by a bull hose, air, and you just fill up a 3-ton or a 1.5-ton car and then tram it to wherever you're going, switch it out.
Okay. So when you were tramming to a different spot, that was a different engine that was moving the ore cars, or did the mucker actually push the cars around?
Most places you had 2 or 3 cars, or maybe even 4 cars, and you'd fill them, and you had a electric motor and you'd tram it to the ore pass and dump it, and then go back and fill them up again, do the same thing over and over again.
Okay, but did that require a different operator, or did you do both jobs?
No,
Dumping and mucking?
in that job, I done both jobs.
Let's see. What other types of work have you done in your life? Employment or work at home or something like that?
Well, when the mine shut down, when I left here, I worked at a rock quarry in Colorado Springs, and I'd done that for 15 or 16 years, drilling with a jumbo and doing the blasting up there. Other than that, the summer jobs, I worked at a gas station and a few of the restaurants around town, just what they'd give kids jobs to do at that time.
So when you were working in the quarry, is that open pit?
Yeah.
Okay. So what actually got you interested in mining? Just being here, or?
Yeah, I think it was just a way of life back then. I mean, if you didn't go to college, you came out of high school and you went to the mine and started working, making. I mean, it was a good pay and a good job. So,
What kind of pay scale?
well, like I said, when I started, it was $2.50 an hour is what it was and that was in 1973. But then it worked up like the muck and draw pocket. That was base pay was $11 an hour, and they had contract on top of your base pay for how many ever cars or tons that you trammed.
Okay. Do you know any of the history of some of the mines that you worked in?
Not a whole lot, really. I mean, Standard Metals, I just remember, I think it was Clarence Shillings and Bill Rhodes widened the tunnel out, mainline tunnel, and took it in underground. And then when the mine started and got in full swing after that.
Okay, and they had some pretty big equipment for working underground. Do you remember any of that?
Well, they just had 10 and 20-ton diesels and stuff, and they used a 21 or a 24 or maybe a 25 even mucking machine to load the cars and haul it on the main level.
Did you ever drive any of those big locomotives?
At times, yeah.
Did you ever have any problems, like derailing or anything?
Oh yeah, you'd go off the track every once in a while and have to get the big jacks or sprag it on.
Well,
Right.
Can you tell us what spragging is?
You'd have a 6x6. On the bigger cars, the small cars, you just had a steel rail or something like this that you'd unhook from the motor and you'd put it at whatever angle you needed to lift the car up and push it over onto the track again.
And on the big guys?
You'd try to, if it wasn't loaded, you'd try to do it the same way. But if the car was loaded, you'd have to get the big 20-ton jacks and raise it up and get them on the track that way.
So you usually couldn't do that by yourself. You usually had to have a partner.
Yeah, with the bigger cars you did.
Okay. Do you have any idea how profitable some of these mines were that you worked at? I mean, roughly what they were taking in over a year?
I don't know what their figures would be, but I know growing up at Standard Metals or Sunnyside Gold, whichever one it was, they were second in the United States in producing gold at one time, so I'm assuming they was making money.
Were you working there when Lake Emma collapsed?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little about that?
Well, leading up to it collapsing, water started coming in a stope on, I think it was sea level. And the miners, they realized something was wrong or something, but they pulled them out of there a week or 2 weeks before it actually caved in. But lucky it was on a Sunday, and we just went to a movie in Drangle that day or night, a drive-in, and when we got back, actually the next morning I went to work down at the drive-in where the bus would pick us up, and everybody there had said that the mine had caved in and stuff. So then they got crews together to go clean up the river and whatever washed down the canyon.
Were you involved in that cleanup in the tunnels?
Yeah, both ways. When it first caved in, Lee Lopez was, well, he's my father-in-law too, but he was a boss at the time, and I worked with his crew cleaning up the canyon, the creek, the timbers out of the river and everything like that. And then later we went up to the Terry tunnel and mucked that into the shaft. And when we was done with that, then come down and finished up on main level, mucking that.
How long did it take to do the total cleanup?
I don't think it's still totally cleaned up, but what we did to get in, we had to shut down in the winter up at the Terry Tunnel. Months-wise, it probably took 6 months to muck into the Terry Tunnel, and then a little over a year to go all the way in the main level.
And did you work mining after that in those tunnels?
Yeah, when they got it all cleaned up and the rays re-timbered and everything, and then everybody started mining again. They was opening up small places and to get going, and yeah, they got all the mining going as soon as the raise was done.
Were there any problems, injuries, or any of that during the cleanup process?
I don't remember anybody ever getting hurt or hurt seriously anyway during the cleanup.
And how about when you were mining itself?
There was, mining's dangerous, but actually it was per man and how many hours was put in at Sunnyside and stuff. It was pretty safe really, but there was some deaths up there, and there was people that just got normal injuries, you know. Well, I wouldn't call them normal, but not hurt real bad, slabs coming down and hitting them or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So what caused the deaths up there in the tunnels?
There was some that were falls, falling down an ore pass or a chute or something like that, and there was some blasting ones where they were hogging pockets together, and one guy was trying to light the fuse and climb out, and rocket sloughed off behind him, and he couldn't get back out of the chute and stuff, and that's probably one of the worst ones.
Yeah, boy, that would be bad. Did you have to learn any special skills to work in the mine?
Just the regular mining skills, I guess that's kind of an art, you know, running the mucking machines and all the drills, the stopers, jacklegs, and learning how to blast and timing. So you had to have some skills to do it.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of those you learned on the job.
Right.
You know, they didn't have training schools or any of that.
No.
Okay. What kind of tools did you have to use to perform your job?
Well, other than the regular machines and the mucking machines and stuff like that, you had a fin hoe, which is a shovel more or less, a double jack when you laid rail or stood rail, whatever you want to call it, and blowpipes, whatever. I mean, it's just the normal stuff to get you around in and whatever.
And so, can you describe what a blowpipe is?
You just hooked your air hose to it as a long, thin tube, and you'd clean out your holes in the drift or whatever, so the holes were cleaner. There wasn't any water in them.
And the water would have come from the drill itself, right?
Some of it, but some of it was
It was groundwater.
groundwater, yeah.
Okay. You got any funny stories? I know there was a lot of shenanigans in the mine.
don't know if there's any, not really. I can't think of anything that was off the top of my head that was funny at the time. I don't know.
Okay. You got any kind of interesting stories from when you worked there?
There's one winter when it was heavy snow that winter, and the snow slides all ran up and down the canyon and stuff, and it took the Irene Bridge out, and we had to walk. They had a bus on one side and a bus on this side, and they'd tram you there, and you'd have to walk over the snow slide, and then they'd take you on up to the mine, and you'd go to work. Or there's another one, the mainline hoist, something went wrong with it. I burned up or something. And we had to walk in and climb the ladders, the raises, to then go to work. So you had to walk 2 miles in the tunnel and then plus climb 1,000 feet or 1,500 feet and get to your working area.
And what tunnel was that?
Had standard metals.
Okay. And let's see. Did you have any dealings with unions?
Nah, they tried to get a union up here one time and it didn't work, so they formed a grievance committee, more or less, and then I think there might have been 2 or 3 miners and a trammer and nipper, slusherman, or something like that that would represent the men, and then they'd go talk to the general manager or superintendent and stuff, and they'd have meetings and negotiate the contracts and stuff.
And you think they were effective?
Yeah, I think the company might have give in too much, and that might have been a little bit of the downfall of the mine.
Okay, what metals primarily were they seeking?
Gold and silver, really, and all the precious metals, but gold and silver mostly.
And they obviously got more silver than gold because of the way it's dispersed.
Well, I don't know. I'd have to ask somebody, the geologist or something more on that. I would think they got more gold, really, but the lead, zinc, copper, and all that, they got a lot more of that than they did gold.
So that kind of paid the bills, and then the gold was the profit.
Yeah.
Okay. Any strikes at the mine?
During this, after they formed the grievance committee and stuff, yeah, there was 2 or 3 walkouts or strikes they were all short-lived, but there was some walkouts.
How about talking about the opening and the closing of the mines and the impact it had on the county?
I think the mines still had to pay their taxes and stuff, but as far as the revenues in town, if the people weren't working, they weren't going downtown spending a whole lot of money and stuff, so it impacted the businesses and everything.
And when the mine closed, a lot of people relocated to other jobs in the mines or took on other locations.
The one time when it closed, must have been in the 80s, and the mine actually sent you could sign up and you could go to school, vocational schools or whatever, and there was a few guys that took advantage of that and stuff, but other than that, when the mine shut down, people all left, or a lot of them, unless you got on with the reclamation crew or something like that.
How did it impact your life?
I tried to stay around for a while, but I ended up going to Alaska, working for a little while in the mine. Went to Fairplay and worked in the London mine there. And then eventually moved to Colorado Springs and worked in that rock quarry.
So, and when did you come back to Silverton?
In 2011 is when we come back. City's just getting too big and whatever, and I missed the mountains.
I got you there. So what did you personally value about your working experiences?
Just the accomplishment of getting something done, the drive and drift and getting it done, or finishing a stope, or whatever it may be. But the biggest thing I take out of it is friendship and the camaraderie you got with all the guys that worked underground and stuff. It was pretty much just like one big family. I mean, everybody looked out for everybody.
Are you in contact with some of your old partners?
Yeah, I still, that's who I went to high school with and everything too. But yeah, I still talk to most of them that I worked with that are still around now. Of course, the ones that taught us are all passed away now. But
So are any of these people still mining somewhere else, or?
no, I can't think of any of them that are still mining now.
Okay, so did you ever pan for gold or stake a claim or open a mine on your own?
No, I never did that.
Never did that. Okay, so do you think that there's a chance that mining might come back to the area?
I think it would really be slim if mining ever did come back with all the regulations and everything like that anymore. I don't think you ever get mining up here again.
But you think there's still ore to be mined?
Oh, I'm sure there's still ore around somewhere, but it'd be so expensive to core drill or do whatever to try to find it. But I'm sure there's still ore in these mountains. Kindle hasn't been mined to the extent like Sunnyside or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a bit about your family? Who's in your family and where are they?
My immediate family, my two sons one's in Colorado Springs working with the city up there, and the other one's in Denver as a mortgage broker. Then I got a brother in Alaska that is retired more or less, and then my older brother here is retired, Larry. He used to be the superintendent. And he worked his way up from being an engineer to eventually becoming the superintendent of Sunnyside.
Did you and your brother work together at all?
Just one summer when Terry Tunnel would fill up with ice and we, I guess, more or less mined that, going out, cleaning the drift, going out to the outside. That's the only time we really worked together underground.
Do you belong to any organizations, and what do they do?
Just the fire department up here now, and that's just to try to protect the towns and businesses in town, and they do a lot of good things. So they donate to, if somebody's hurt or a family's in need, they donate to that, and then they always give scholarships to the seniors that graduate too.
Is that a volunteer fire department?
Yeah, it's all volunteer.
Volunteer. And so where do they get the funding to give scholarships?
A lot of that comes through the friends of the fire department, but and selling T-shirts at the 4th of July or what. And a lot of donations too come into the fire department, and then they're sponsored by the county and the city, they have a budget, they give them so much money a year too.
So do you participate in some of these events, like the Hard Rock events?
Yeah, the last few years, the only thing I've done is the mucking machine contest. But always before that, we'd do the drilling. But there's no miners around anymore. Well, we're all getting older too. But it's hard to find a partner, a drilling partner that, the young kids don't know and everybody else is old.
There's no in between.
No.
Can you explain Hard Rockers Holidays to Steve?
Yeah, can you explain what the Hard Rockers holidays are about?
Well, it's about the history of mining around here and to show that, Silverton was a mining community, but they have all kinds of different contests. What they do underground, they have drilling competitions, mucking machine competition. They used to have rail standing, they don't do that anymore.
Can you elaborate on that? What is rail standing?
If you was driving drift, you would have to lay rails so you could still muck your round out and stuff, and you would have to put in a set of rail and put it down so you could have the mucking machine go on it, but you didn't really have the mucking machine at the contest. It was just standing the rail.
Mm-hmm. So I've seen with a mucking machine where they'll have end of track, but they'll also have a couple of additional rails tucked in there so that you can just kind of slide them into position as you move forward. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, your slide rails or something, you would push them as you advance through 15-foot rails or 20-foot or whatever they may be. These would be in your stood rail already, and you'd push them forward with the mucking machine as you went out. And when you got to the end of that, it's when you'd have to stand a new set of rail and do the same thing over again.
And they'd have to lay the ties before they could
Right.
slide the rail.
Yeah.
So were these ties spiked down to the floor of the tunnels, or just laying there?
They're just laying there in a trough or a ditch or something, you'd
So
put
the
them
weight
there.
was holding them in place, even
Yeah.
with loaded ore cars. It would work
Yeah.
pretty well.
Yeah.
Huh. Pretty fascinating. Oh yeah, any close calls that you can think of?
For the most part, I was pretty lucky, but one time barring a chute, they had these aluminum pry bars, and if the ore got hung up in the pockets, you'd have to bar it loose and bar it down into the chute. Say one time then it came down too fast, or I was in the wrong place, and it snapped the bar out of my hands and hit me upside the head and knocked me off the platform, but it wasn't really hurt, just knocked into the mud on the
You hit the hardest part of your body. Huh?
Yeah.
If they were to open the mines, would you want to go back to mining?
If I was younger, I'd like to go back to mining. I mean, like I said, the group of guys that you get work underground and stuff, there's no better friendships than you get with that. Everybody just watched out for everybody else, or tried to.
Mm-hmm. And if they had some other job other than, mucking or working with this heavy drills, say management position or something, you wouldn't be interested in doing anything like that?
Probably not at this time of my life. I wouldn't want to go do that.
Okay. Let's see. Did you ever ride in the tram buckets?
No, I never did get to experience that. That was before my time.
Can you tell us any stories about your dad? Can you tell it to Steve?
Yeah.
Well, growing up, he had he had his own coal business, and he drove truck and stuff. And then he was a mechanic, and that's where he got into the mine. But he worked at the P&G, down at the end of town, and he was a mainline trammer for I don't know how many years at Standard Metals and stuff. And then he became a mechanic, and then he became the mechanic boss. But he went, well, when he was growing up, people didn't have to worry about jobs. There were so many mines going that if they didn't like one place, they could go to another place and go to work. But I remember he pretty much mostly stayed at Standard Metals until it shut down. That's when he went to P&G. And he worked out at the Dixieland mill for a while, but that might have been his own business, mechanic business out there.
Mm-hmm. So when you say he was a mechanic, he was for the mine itself or for the mill or?
For the mine itself, he worked on the heavy equipment and just repaired the slushing machines or whatever. But the diesel motors, that's what he worked on.
How about the pneumatic motors? Did you ever operate any of those?
No,
The air motors?
Well, the slushing machines, that's it. There was some air slushing machines. And, well, the mucking machines were all run by air, too. Mm-hmm. But
so, if as you are mucking towards, the end of tunnel, if the rail didn't go quite far enough, did you have to hand muck?
if you was close enough to the face where you could hand muck and still get your round in, sometimes you would do that, but most of the time you'd have to stop and stand the rail and put your new set of slides in and finish mucking out so you could get another round in and advance it. Mm-hmm. Right. If you hand mucked it back, you kind of messed your opposite partners up because they would definitely have to stand rail, and that's the worst part of the job of drive and drift, was standing the rail.
I would have thought it would have been breaking rock.
With the drills, that was the fun part.
Yeah. How deep did you generally have to drill?
6 foot rounds is what most of the time we put
And how
in.
much explosive went into the hole? A couple sticks, one stick?
Nah, you'd fill the hole pretty much up. You'd leave maybe a foot and a half from the collar, but the rest of the hole was filled with dynamite. And then they started going to prell, so you'd put one stick of dynamite in and then fill the rest of the hole with prell.
Okay, so can you tell us what prell is?
That's just sawdust with diesel in it, more or less. And, it just expands and does the same thing. And you'd load it with a prell pod, or it was air driven, and it would pressurized in the hole. But then I guess it's probably cheaper than dynamite.
Yeah, so was this all electrically ignited or fuses with lit fuses?
Most of the time we used electric fuses, but then later, towards the end of the mine and stuff, they started going to non-Ls, primers and stuff, but most of the time we used electric primers. You'd have to tie them all in together.
Mm-hmm. So how far back did you usually have to get when they fired the charge? so that you're out of danger.
It depended on if you was in a stope or a drift or whatever, but you definitely get back all the way around a corner or something, a couple thousand feet or something. If you was in a stope, you just get to the bottom of the raise and your blasting box was set up right there. So unless,
Now, I've seen timbering in the stopes. It's to hold the rock faces apart and to limit any kind of movement, as well as a platform to work from.
we never had to use, you might put up sprags or something to hold the hanging wall up a little bit, but I'd never really see, it wasn't in bad enough ground to where we had to timber in the stopes, you know. You'd timber the raises you went up, but we never put no sets in drifts. We put sets in, you know, to hold the walls.
Did you have to do that kind of work too?
Some did that. It depended on, well, yeah, if you was working in that area that was bad, you'd have to, I'd done a little bit of that when I worked with D. Harmill and Clarence Schillings.
That must have been a difficult job. You know, pounding wedges in the dark, basically.
It was with your lamps. It was lighter than a guy thinks it was underground, but
You use electric lamps, right?
yeah, yeah, the battery
Did you ever
operated.
use carbide lamps?
No, I never did.
So the electric lamp was quite a good invention because it gave you a whole lot more light and it didn't blow out.
Well, once in a while they'd go out and you'd have to walk in the dark, or hopefully your partner was there close and you could follow him out. Or
So you didn't usually have a backup on your lighting, just the one.
no, just the one light.
So what was the furthest distance underground that you worked?
Well, then, I mean, Standard Metals had miles and miles of tunnels, so it was 2 miles in, and then you went up, depending on which level you worked on, you'd go up 1,000 feet and then go off into your other drift or working areas, so I'm not sure how far back you'd
You
be
didn't
on
have
that.
to climb ladders except when the man hoist wasn't working.
Yeah, to get to your, well, that was an extreme case where they told us if we wanted to work, we'd walk in and we'd walk to our working areas. But on a normal basis, you always had to climb up to your stope. If you was working in a stope, you'd climb the manway up.
Can you give us a definition of what a stope is?
It's vertical mining. And you'd take a raise up so far, and then you made pockets down below to pull the ore, and you'd have to hog all these pockets into just a big open room like this, and then you'd breast it down, but it's mining vertical instead of horizontal.
Did you ever break into a vug?
Well, you always hit voids or something like that. Nothing real big. Never did anyway.
Okay. Anything else that you can think of that you might want to share with us? Any philosophies about mining?
It would be nice if mining did come back, or some industry where you could get some families or more people into town or like that. But mining would be, since Silverton was invented with mining or created, I think it would be nice if there was mining, but but again, I don't think they'll ever will be.
So I understand that most of the mining here was volcanically loaded.
Yeah, that's what all the geologists and everybody says, so I just take their word for it.
Okay. Another question. From my understanding is that the higher up you go, the richer the vein, in most cases.
I would say that depended on the vein, I mean, there was some rich veins way down lower than what as it went higher, then you mined out of it. I don't know if it pinched the vein off or what when you got higher, but it would be a case-by-case scenario, how the vein laid.
Because I'd heard a lot of mines would follow the vein, and they figured if the vein's going up vertically, there's probably good gold down below, and oftentimes they found there was a lot less ore lower than the high point. And I was just wondering how that would be possible, being volcanically pushed up.
One thing I remember, the engineers and geologists used to say that the gold would follow the silver. If you hit silver, then you would probably hit gold later on, or
Really?
in the vein.
You ever find it together in the same ore?
Yeah, there was a few stopes that had it together.
I understand also that over there in Red Mountain Town, I can't remember the mine that's right there. It's got the big head frame still standing. When they broke into that, it was a huge cavern. Did you hear any stories about that, or familiar with that at all?
No, not really.
I heard the cavern was laced with silver, but it just kind of maybe just a story, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I know Eldorado and the mines on that side of the mountain had some rich ore, so it very well could be true.
I've got a question. We talked a little bit about, with some other folks, about high grading.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask
Could
you about that.
Could you talk a little bit about define what high grading is, and if it's something you saw your time in the mine?
Well, they call it'd depend on your definition. If the high grading was just the high grade ore, but when I first started underground, the bosses or nobody else cared. If you found a good piece of ore or whatever, they didn't care if you took it outside or whatever, and that'd be, I mean, if you happen to be lucky enough to be in a stope that had good gold in it or something, you could cob it down, break it down, and just have a smaller piece. And some people took it out, you know, when they couldn't. Like I said, when I first started up there, nobody cared if you took a little, because there wasn't enough being taken out to hurt their profits or whatever.
What did they do with these pieces that they took out?
A lot of people just kept them as souvenirs and stuff, but I'm sure some people that took out more or whatever would sell it to somebody.
So it was like a bonus to them.
Yeah, could be, yeah.